So last week we had begun our conversation on masculinity in the pandemic. Not last week, about 2 weeks ago, how has the man's position in the family been affected in regards to his ability to provide for his family financially and thereby or in tandem emotionally. So we had a talk with Andy. This week we're semi-continuing on that thought process, speaking to men and asking them how they're faring in their relationship, how it is being affected by the pandemic. And the issue that we're tackling today, or that we're just going to speak on, is long distance relationship. How has that been affected essentially? And what are the challenges that have arisen? How do you see people around you getting over them? How do you think it can be overcome? So we're looking at loneliness from the man's perspective, if he's not in a relationship, and if he's in a long distance relationship, how he's tackling that. Okay.
Right. And yeah, we can talk about it from that perspective because I can also relate from that perspective. I only have a minuscule amount of knowledge when it comes to active relationships, active long distance relationships, but I can't speak to co-parenting long distance.
I have been in a long distance relationship, and
I have too.
Yeah, that was when I was a bit younger, when I lived in Japan, and that was taxing. I can say now that I'm possibly in a long distance relationship, not intimately, but I'm co-parenting long distance. That has been a challenge for the whole life of my child. I've been in a long distance co-parenting relationship. All right, so now that we've all essentially covered our grounds, I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of co-parenting long distance, and so will Alicia. We're going to add in our own bit about our experience prior and just a bit of advice. Darrell, you said that you were in a long distance relationship, so we want you to speak from that perspective, okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Alrighty. We're officially beginning. This is the second installment in our series of chats. As I said before, colloquially, this is man and woman argument. We just want to touch on issues that men and women couples share and essentially just give voice to and even shed some light on issues that these people may be facing. Maybe we'll touch someone across the sea or across the fence. Maybe we won't, but the idea is to just talk, have conversations, air things out, and to give or create a forum for people to express themselves. So I think this is important. There are many forums for couples to air their issues. However, from a Caribbean perspective, I think this is a good one or a good start. So, long distance relationship. How many people do you actually know are engaged in long distance relationship, Darrell?
So through the pandemic, actually, I think that a lot of people have had a lot of choices to make. We know that with all of the restrictions on travel, whereas for some persons, it might have been a lot easier to go to another country to visit someone they're in a relationship with, that has been significantly more difficult and at some points impossible. So a lot of couples have had choices to make. A lot of it has been to either ramp up the relationship a lot more quickly than they would have expected, or it may have led to the end of the relationship. Sure. So we see that the whole issue of this whole pandemic has led to, I guess you could say, a lot of relationships speeding up very quickly to their what would have been their end. And I think we are still seeing a lot of the ramifications on that.
I think that is important because as millennials, we are tending to do things much differently than our parents, than our grandparents. We're tending to date in a different way. We're tending to start and end relationships in a different way. We're approaching marriages differently we're approaching having kids much more differently. And a part of the whole millennial syndrome, I like to say, is that we feel like we need to always live our best lives and just do us all the time. And relationships take time. And adding long distance to a relationship, as you hinted, Darrell, and the pandemic too, to that equation, will sometimes speed up things to an immature end, or speed up things to the discomfort of the couple in the relationship, because long distance relationships are essentially not even clear cut. We don't really know what to do in a long distance relationship. Most times it is up to the couple to define the parameters of what is to be done. I found an interesting article on the New York Times, and there's this professor of psychology, that's the word, psychology, from Loyola University in Maryland. I may be messing this up. Sorry to anyone who knows how to pronounce this properly. She's an expert in romantic relationships. And what you were hinting towards, Darrell, a lot of new things are happening in this pandemic. More people have actually gone on OkCupid. What are the other dating websites?
I want to know, Michaela, how do you know about these dating websites? Do we need an intervention?
Tinder, Bumble. She read about them. She read about them, Alicia.
No.
She
I
read
have
about
lived.
them.
I have lived. I have lived, Nadia. But a lot of people have actually joined OkCupid, Match.com, eHarmony. Come on, you all know them. Don't pretend that you don't know them. eHarmony.
I'm sure you've heard of Tinder.
Exactly.
I don't know about you. I don't know them. Like, I only know some of these because of TV adverts. Like, oh gosh, what do they call that? blackpeoplemeet.com, eHarmony, those that you name, but I've never actively gone on those sites. I mean, there was one experience when I was like 19 years old, and I was like, oh, what is this blackpeoplemeet.com? And they were showing some photos and videos of some fine black men, right? So I was like, let me check this out. And let me tell you, I was sorely disappointed at the ragamuffins that were being shown, and I've never been back there.
Well, I can't say I have never been back on any one of those sites. I have definitely have. But a lot of people have gone on these sites during the pandemic because people be lonely. People be wanting a body.
Yeah, those sites don't provide you with that warm body though. You can get a mental release from that in talking to somebody, but especially during a pandemic, people want to feel a warm body. I don't necessarily want to be talking to somebody 24/7 and never having seen their face or their facial expression.
True. In a long distance relationship with these online dating websites and everything, it does take away the body element of it. However, it still gives you the perspective of having someone to attach to or to communicate with or to form something with. We're all human beings, are social beings. We need another. So these sites, especially during the pandemic, which is why so many subscriptions have gone up during the pandemic, is because we need another body, physically or not. What say you, Darrell?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on your personality. There's some people, such as myself, who really don't mind the time alone. We actually, when the pandemic kind of hit, it was kind of like, okay, all right, I can just chill at home. Fewer people to see, not even necessarily on a relationship, like a intimate relationship level, just on a general personal relationship level. There's some people who actually might prefer that, but I think there are a lot of people who are really missing the social element. And yeah, I think there are a lot of people now who, due to the pandemic, they can't go out like they used to. They can't meet people like they used to. Here in Antigua, we have a curfew, so guess what? You can't go visiting anyone at any late hours. Your movements are restricted. So it brings a lot of other issues. It can contribute to loneliness because you may have been starting a relationship and all of a sudden these restrictions are here. And guess what?
Exactly.
Now I can't
Exactly.
go and further things. So I kind of have to put these things on pause, especially as we were saying, in a long distance relationship. I could have hopped on a plane and gone to New York or gone to UK or even gone to, say, St. Vincent, Dominica, but all of these places at some time had restrictions.
Yeah.
So it's not that simple now. And what would have been a really straightforward approach, you now have to navigate, okay, do I need to get vaccinated? Do I need to take my COVID test? Do I have to quarantine? Where am I going to stay? What's going to happen? So there's now all of these new issues and restrictions that are coming up. And a lot of people are just confused on what to do. We don't have a playbook. This has never happened before.
Exactly.
And we don't know how to navigate the situation.
That's important that you pointed that out, Daryl, because long distance relationship in itself had its challenges before. You mentioned being able to hop on a plane and to visit. How many people had that luxury to do that though, even though they were in a long distance relationship prior to the pandemic? How many people could have hopped on a plane and visited the person they're intended? And how often could they have done it? So prior to the pandemic, long distance relationship had its challenges, and that led to a lot of people not even wanting to try it. But as I pointed out earlier, you guys both said that you are, lack of a better term, hermits. I'm not saying that you're hermits, but just that you like your own company, okay? Enough people have been trying to reach out, and I think that speaks volume that they have been trying to reach out. Probably even the hermits have been trying to reach out. And why? What could have caused this? Not just the pandemic, but what else?
I don't know, ma'am. I really want to know what could have caused this too. Because I haven't tried to reach out to anybody. I swear I've been pushing people away. Like, it seems I've become so comfortable with myself, with my children, just being in my own space, that I don't care to hear anybody. And let's face it, I am a journalist, for God's sakes. I have people talking in my ears 24/7. When I get home, I don't necessarily want anybody to chat with over the phone. I want some warm hugs with complete silence.
So then now, Daryl, that brings me to my other question of communicate. It's twofold: communication and loneliness. Yes, you both have pointed out that some people like their own time, but a lot of people, as I've been saying, have been alone. How can they tackle that loneliness on a relationship front? And if they do decide to engage in this long distance relationship, how do they improve communication and not fear, or not have it be doldrum, as Alicia is describing it, just talking over the phone and talking and saying what you want? How can we prevent these things?
I think in the first case, you probably need to sit down with the person you're interested in and have a discussion. I think a lot of relationships, unfortunately, even at their base, they don't really have strong communication components. So when something like this comes in, all of a sudden everything is gone topsy-turvy. You know, I don't want to hear from you because you're calling me too often. Whereas I may just be struggling. I may have lost my job. I may have, had to be isolated for a few weeks because of COVID. So I'm dealing with things that I can't necessarily very easily communicate with you. You're in a different situation. If you're in a long distance relationship, you're in a different area, you're in a different country, you're facing different issues. So I think at the outset, you need to establish a way that you both can agree to communicate, because we communicate differently. And a lot of us don't understand that. That's okay. But what you need to do is to come to a common understanding. Okay, I don't want you calling me, every lunch break, every coffee break.
Wow, the leashes.
Me personally, I don't like talking to people on the phone. other people do. So I think you need to communicate something like that, because one person may need that reassurance because now I'm not seeing you. I'm not able to see you at the frequency that I would have expected. So guess
Exactly.
what? How do we work something out that benefits us both? I don't want you to call me. So do you prefer to message me?
How you gonna do
Or
it?
or can we meet in the middle and I give you a call 3 times a week? So just being open and being willing to discuss what your expectations are and what the other person's expectations are is very
So,
important.
like, essentially smart online or long distance dating. So, from the perspective of the parenting now, Alicia, the challenges that it has presented for me as a parent and co-parenting long distance is that first and foremost from the perspective of communication, or from the standpoint of communication. Um, when you're in a relationship with another person, it is hard already. Communication, even physically, is hard. You need to learn how to read the person. You need to know how to understand their silent moments and their non-silent moments. And even if they're talkative, sometimes reading between the lines is even hard. Adding parenting to that equation, and then adding long distance, and you can add to this too, Alicia, to that equation, has been a challenge. Like, how what school do I send him to? How do I reprimand him if he has done something wrong? How do I pay for his health care? Now, immunization is a huge thing right now, and vaccination, not immunization. Vaccination is a huge thing. What vaccines do I give him? What place will he live? Like, what country? Because in my experience, I've lived in 3 different countries already with my son, and he's only 6 years old. And we have yet to decide where we're going to settle with this child. So there's so many moving parts when you add co-parenting and long distance. And mine has especially been I'm putting it nicely, difficult.
Yes, co-parenting can be very difficult when it's long distance. There are things that me as a woman cannot or will not want to deal with. For example, my children just bear it out. One day my son he was about to bathe and he said, "Mommy, where's my penis hard?" And girl, I
Yeah.
kid you not. I was like, I don't know. I did not Google or something. Just close the door and go in bed, because I'm like, that is not for me to explain. And
Should.
so you have those moments when you wish that either your partner was closer or
Exactly.
they would share that type of knowledge, and it's very difficult to parent over the phone, so to speak. I feel like I'm not sure if it's because I'm a familiar face. If I correct my children or if I scold them, they're angry for like 2 seconds and all of a sudden they're back to doing what I just said not to do, or, just playing around. But if I call their father on the phone and I said, this is what happened and blah, 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 and he speaks to them, all of a sudden it's waterworks. I was like, you barely even know the man. So yeah, I have those issues as well.
Darrell, from a male's perspective, a person who wants to have kids, just what advice would you give to single fathers, single mothers who are co-parenting long distance? How can they overcome these of course, just from your perspective, how can they overcome these hurdles?
Yeah, again, I think communication is important. Putting the needs of your child first is important, and coming to a common understanding. I recently had a friend who has 2 children, and the children recently would have moved. So that question was, and some of the issues that had to be navigated were, okay, what are my rights after they move? What is the relationship going to be like after they move if they go to live with their father? Do I need to see a lawyer to figure that out? Will I be able to negotiate? When are they going to come back? Are they going to come back for summer? Are they going to come back for Christmas? Who's going to pay for that? So all of it is really sitting down and really trying to get that common understanding. and also knowing what your rights are, what your responsibilities are, and just sticking to what you would have agreed to or what you would have said. So I think that's very important. I know for a lot of people it's difficult because their partner or former partner is not somebody they can talk to. So in that case, having an intermediary, having someone who can actually discuss with you to kind of act as a medium, I think that is a good idea in the case where you're not together. Y'all have bumped heads, but you're trying to figure out what the best decision is for your child or children.
That is so important because I'm sure you have experienced this too, Alicia. The anxiety, you hinted at it, as to what will be done after the child leaves. I haven't actually thought through the legalities and the semantics of it all, to tell the truth. I have not, because I think from my own experience, where I'm coming from is that, and I think many women can relate to it. Oh, they're going to get some kind of relief, some kind of reprieve. It is his turn now, or it is her turn now, and I think that's where our mind goes first, Daryl. It is their turn now. And we almost foolhardily don't think about the legalities of it all because we're dealing with a human being and we are parent and we are parents, and we must be cognizant of the fact that we have rights to the child and the child has rights too. How are we going to be violating those rights if we are zipping them back and forth, or just having them in one country and then back in another in other couple of years? And what are our financial responsibilities? But I think it is from an emotional place, especially for women. And you can probably agree to this too, Alicia. We are just like, I'm tired. I've spent so much money. I'm over it. It is your turn now. You just...
And I agree, Michaela. I can relate on that level because even for me, my sons, the plan is to eventually send them to live with their father who lives in the United States. And I'm still in two minds, so to speak, because I'm like, they've moved several times already, schools that is, and countries. They've moved from Dominica to Antigua. They've moved while in Antigua to about 3 different schools, and I'm not sure if I would want to expose them to yet another school. Like, how would they take that?
Exactly.
I often make this joke, right, that I've already served my 9 years with my children and the next 9 years is for their father until they're 18. But it's like, what am I going to do with myself when they're gone? Because just a few weeks ago they were in Dominica for the summer because I needed a break, I needed a breather. And literally as soon as they left, I spent my nights in the dark alone listening to country music. I kid you not, that is all that I did, because I have spent so much time with these children that I don't know how to function without them, it would seem. I had the boys, for example, when I was 21. I've never lived by myself before that. Probably lived with a friend or a boyfriend or my mother. But it was not until after I had my boys that I began to live on my own. And I've been doing that for essentially 9 years. And I've become so comfortable in this routine of mine that I don't want anybody getting in my space who will disrupt that peace.
Yes. That is so true. Because I've had my son. And wow, we're running out of time. I'm sorry. We're running out of time. We have about 5 minutes. So, yeah, I've never actually thought what I'm going to do about myself, what I'm going to do with myself if his father decides that he wants to have him. He has said he doesn't want to have him alone. And if he does, he will give it to a grandmother. And that's a whole other thing. Like, it's your child, you have the kids together, and then the father is contemplating just passing the baton on almost to another thing. And that is a whole other mess that we can't get into.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, and that is very true. If the mother gives the child to the father, then all of a sudden she's a bad mother. How could you leave your child with the father? But if it's the other way around, that the father leaves the child for the mother to take care of, it's like the mother's responsibility. And they use that term. They like to say, oh my God, don't worry, you'll get through it, you're so strong. I absolutely hate that term. I don't want to be strong. Do you know the type of baggage that comes with being strong?
Oh gosh, I hate when they say that. I hate it. I hate it. You know what's funny? People saying that actually makes me feel lonely. It makes me feel really lonely. It's like, I don't want to hear you tell me that I'm strong. I don't want to be strong right now. I want assistance. I want help. I don't want this long distance thing. Um, so it is just so many things that you have to overcome emotionally when you even contemplate giving the child over to the father, because that sinking loneliness feeling, even though I have not experienced it as yet, but a little bit of panic has set in. What am I gonna do? And just like how lonely you feel just at the idea of being alone without your child. Like it's become your norm now. So how are you gonna create your new norm? Yeah. All right. So this has been a good chat. Daryl, any closing comments? Give to the public? Any advice?
Yeah, this was a very quick discussion. The time flew really quickly. And yeah, I think we in a relationship can sometimes want to or hope that the other person understands how we're feeling or what we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very important for us to be clear without being contentious, and to communicate what we're thinking and how we're feeling, so that the other party can have as much information as possible and that they can meet us in the middle, as opposed to just making a decision and not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to discuss. So in cases of long distance relationships, in cases where you're feeling lonely, I think it's important to have an honest, frank discussion and to share as much as you can with the person you're dating or with your partner, to meet things in the middle.
That's very important. Communication is always key. Yeah. Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can say besides that. I do believe in communication. I think Daryl is right. But the problem is we tout that, we say that phrase with such vigor that communication is key, without actually knowing what that means. What does effective communication involve? Because a lot of us are not on the same level mentally. We're not on the same level intellectually, as a matter of fact, because some of the things that I would come and want to discuss with you, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you're not giving me the type of response that I want. So people have to be, one, responsible enough to know whether the partner that they're dating is the person for them. What is effective communication in that sense? How can I reach you? How can you reach me? And we need to get out of this cycle by just saying, well, once I talk to you, I'm communicating, because that isn't the case. And I think that is what we need to take away from this. Everybody isn't for everybody. And you need to establish those guidelines before even entering into a relationship.
From my own perspective, I really, really think it is important not to assume that the other person is on your level mentally, because it goes back to the point of communication. Yes, but communication is almost multidimensional, and having a person who is on your level mentally, I think, is essential to having effective communication. Because talk, beat your gum up. If that person is not on par with you, does not understand the world from a similar worldview or from a similar perspective, you will talk and talk and talk and nothing will get through. So I think it is most pertinent to have someone who is on your level, so that you can have that base level understanding, that spiritual connection, even long distance wise, because you can connect with someone who is across the seas, and you can find, Jamaicans like to say, every who of them stick a bush. You can find a stick, and the stick might be England and you might be Antigua. You know, we need to find people who are on our level, and I think we underestimate the importance of that. I've definitely had many bonders deal with people who are not on my level. Yes. What is it from the Antiguan perspective, Dara? What do Antiguans say?
Yeah, I think that's it. Every pot has their cover. There's another saying, but it's not coming to mind right now.
Yeah. So I hope you join us again, Darrell. This I hope continues for a while. I love these discussions, especially with adults. I don't get to speak with adults so much. So I do like I do like actually having meaningful discussions with people my age. So we will definitely continue this and keep it a weekly kind of discussion in weekly installments. So this is our second edition, dealing with masculinity in the pandemic and dealing with loneliness and long distance relationship. This has been Michaela Sagboro
and Alicia George
with
Darrell George.